Hello and welcome to the Quantum Gypsy. I am Carrie. I'm a BQH practitioner with thequantumgypsy.com. And I'm currently working on a project that's super fun that we're super excited about with a fellow BQH practitioner, Ceirra. And in doing this BQH Ascension Handbook for Beginners, we're exploring all foundational questions that we would have liked and appreciated answered for us when we were newly awakened and starting our journey to Ascension. So, if you have any questions that we're not covering in these videos that you'd like us to ask, we're more than welcoming of it. Leave a comment down below. You can email us. You can visit our websites. My email is thequantumgypsy@gmail.com. And this is just a passion that we're enjoying exploring, but we wanted to cover some of the foundational questions because we do feel like bigger information needs to come through, and this will just help understand all that. So, anyways, we're excited you're on this journey with us. Thank you so much for listening, for supporting, for any questions that you have. And yeah, hope you enjoy.
And then just inviting in anyone who would be interested in helping us with our Ascension handbook. Do you feel anyone around you?
Yes, I feel like the Octurians are here and the Mantis beings.
Amazing. So first, can I ask you, do the Octurians have any kind of connection to the Mantis beings?
They're showing me the word cousins. So like I guess they would be interconnected on, but not like that's just what they're showing me is the word cousins.
Okay, perfect. I was just wondering because I've seen I feel like a lot of Octurians also work with Mantis. So that's why I was curious.
Yeah, yeah. So they're like related, but not like, brother and sister type of, but they are interconnected.
Beautiful. So we just had a couple questions. What is quantum physics?
Quantum physics is the scientific way of observing the and observing and acknowledging and quantifying the unseen.
So why is quantum physics important to the ascension? Or why is it even important to know about for our lives now?
Well, quantum physics has fundamental rules that help you navigate your experience there on Earth. And so there are a lot of laws within quantum physics that once you start using and applying these laws and understanding these laws, they cross over and have a lot of similarities between some of the language and terms that you would use within spirituality, like the the word quantum means to like a number, but the quantum physics, there's an infinite, that like the infinite unending number of numbers. And so the possibilities are all there that exist for all. And so how it crosses over with spirituality and what's good to understand is that's like miracles. That's what you would, or like the healing or the ether or the chi or the energy that is unseen but felt within the senses. Quantum physics helps bring a scientific approach that is interchangeable between spirituality language of things that they say.
So through the Ascension handbook, we will definitely get very deep into quantum physics because it's so important to our lives now, especially as we go more into a fifth dimensional consciousness. But could you please explain for people what quantum healing is?
So what quantum healing is it's using the information and the higher perspectives and the understandings of what exists within the quantum. So they use so angelic healing, the spiritual healing, that is all just a form of energy, and quantum physics explains that energy. And so they are easily interchangeable. But quantum healing is when you go to a relaxed brain state where you can access the information of all that has occurred within your many, many lifetimes. And you're able to travel and go to certain places that were what you would consider either traumatic or healing in a way. But you have the opportunity to go to specific places and times within your past lifetimes, current lifetimes, future lifetimes, that you are wanting to seek answers for and understanding and healing for.
So, what is the quantum healing hypnosis technique, or QHHT, that was developed by Dolores Cannon? And why is this so important at this time?
That was a download and information given to Dolores Cannon. It's very interchangeable between the technique that you two use right now, which is beyond quantum healing, and the difference is it uses some different, not as rigid structures, and the beyond quantum healing technique you can do over internet, and the QHHT you're not able to. That's an in-person only technique. And what was the second part of that question? What was it? Why is it so important at this time? It's so important at this time because there have been so many distractions, and um, humanity stepped away from kind of having a meditative practice and being able to be quiet in the mind, and to get some of the inner perspectives that we would have provided had they done that. So this allows humanity to kind of step back from the emotion and to be taken to that place of whatever the question is, and to, without the emotion attachment, understand it from their guides from a higher perspective, and get higher perspective understandings of why they experienced that certain time. And then the techniques allow, while you're stepped away from that emotion, to then, if healing is needed to bring, or energy of healing is needed to be brought to that issue or that point, able to release and to alchemize those feelings, and to be able to heal them, so that now the behavior that they would exhibit in their conscious mind, their daily life, now that healing's there, so that behavior then cease to exist within their conscious mind exploration of life.
Beautiful. So, what is the difference between like QHHT and BQH versus hypnosis? And I guess, what is your definition of hypnosis?
Hypnosis is just going into a state of a brainwave state that is relaxed, where there are no other alternating outside frequency of channels. So the ego of thought isn't interacting. You're actually going to that brainwave state where there are no other. It's the higher self, or able to channel high perspective information. So the difference between QHHT, BQH, and hypnosis is that the QHHT and BQH take you to that relaxed brainwave state, but you're still able to be a neutral observer within that brainwave state. And you still are able to utilize free will in a way during that brainwave state, and state that if you don't feel comfortable answering questions, it's not like you can be imprinted. With hypnosis, you're completely stepped aside, so you're not able to utilize as much free will in the back of your mind, and imprinting can happen. And so that's not this imprinting is not something you don't imprint, like, oh, you're not going to want to smoke anymore. Like, they don't do that in BQH or QHHT. But in hypnosis, that they're able to do a lot of imprinting. So you're not necessarily working out the problem yourself and getting the higher perspective yourself. What you're having is someone do the work for you. And so this is a modality that we don't recommend, because we want you to still be a conscious, in the driver's seat, and utilize your free will to do the work.
So I know you said that Dolores Cannon was actually downloaded the information um, to bring it to the collective. So why was it so important for her to bring it to the collective at the time that she did?
Because there were a lot of volunteers that were there during that time that were confused and didn't know why they were there on Earth. And so by her bringing it to the collective, this is a way for the volunteers that are here at this time to be able to have a tool to ask the questions and bring some of their remembrance that they are here for a purpose.
So do you think that like QHHT and BQH are the most powerful tools that were left for starseeds to help remember who they are and kind of like make sense of what's happening to them?
Yes, right now at this time, yes. I mean, there are different energy healing modalities that are very profound. We're not going to dismay one, but this allowing you to step out of the matrix, allowing your mind to be disconnected from the matrix for a moment to understand who you are and and this is a great way to ask your specific role because not everyone has the same role. However, it's a great way for you to go and become neutral observers of the trauma that you've experienced here on Earth so that you're able to be empowered to stand into your role. Because if you don't do the shadow work and you don't go ahead and alchemize those energies of those traumas, you're not going to be very beneficial to fulfill your role necessarily because you're still on your journey.
So how does quantum healing help you um, release these traumas from your body?
Well, there's aspects of like you get the higher perspective of understanding the wisdom of why you experienced it, and once you acknowledge and bring light to the reason as to in a neutral perspective of why you experience something, that can naturally alchemize that energy that then is stored as in the body and release it. And then also we can bring in and do body scans where we go ahead and check all of your alignments and your chakras. And we can actually bring in during these transmissions energy that is healing and aligning and that uh, is encoded within the transmissions of these sessions.
Perfect. So what is a past life regression and why is it so healing?
Regression just does mean pretty much past life, like in the past. And sometimes when you have things that have been experienced in what is perceived as a past life, that energy can follow you into this lifetime, and it can be confusing as why you have ailments or have certain personality traits that necessarily, once we go in and clear them, that they release and can help you in this lifetime. And so it's just energy that got trapped and stored and followed into this life that we can take you. Or say you like a certain type of music and you're like, I don't understand why. And that's your guides have been sending you that understanding so that they want you to remember that past life. But it's just too confusing without having these sessions as to understanding why. We go ahead and show you, your guides take you to that past life to understand, oh, this is what happened. This is why that music triggers me and makes me feel a certain way. And once you know that, then you have a higher perspective when you're walking around your daily life. And, it's you understand who you were and that you're a multi-dimensional, multi-reality, multi-living being.
So what's the difference between a past life and a parallel life?
So a past life is an individual experience that you had in a linear time frame. Parallel life is one that you would be there are two aspects of you experiencing on this timeline.
Okay, perfect. So you mentioned the waves of volunteers. So can you break down the different volunteers that are here on Earth and why they came?
Yes, so there's Dolores originally spoke about, if you're familiar with Dolores Cannon's work, about 3 waves of volunteers. However, now there's a lot more waves of volunteers, just as more linear time is experienced on the earth. And so what essentially happened was that there was a distress call from Earth, from Gaia. Um, and as the law of non-intervention, the galactics, angelics, any other realm beings were not allowed to come onto Earth and to intervene in any way unless there was a bigger reason for them to, that was going to be detrimental to more than just humanity, because it's a evolution project. And there was a distress call, like we're showing with the nuclear testing, the atomic testing that went out, that humanity was in trouble. The humanity's free will needed to be monitored, and we needed to know what was going on, that humanity, what they were going to do with that extreme power. So there's a law of non-intervention that we can't physically come down and intervene with humanity. However, the loophole is we could send ascended masters that we knew, we could ask for volunteers to go in and incarnate into a human vessel and lose their memory. Therefore, it would be the loophole that we're not necessarily manipulating mankind's free will if we are sending our own as mankind in itself, right? And so we sent the first wave of volunteers. They didn't know who they were. They were down there in human bodies and they could not stand it. But the information that they were able to upload to us of how humanity was going and what they were up to was very beneficial in us understanding how devastational, like how immediate our response was needed to come up with a plan to change the course of humanity. And so when we did that and the first wave of volunteers came, we then had to take all the information that the first wave of volunteers was giving us and modify our training program, if you will, and all the information we uploaded to the second wave of volunteers so that they may have a different experience that's more enjoyable, that could get us more information of how we could change the course. So with each wave of volunteer, they're coming down with a different frequency because they're all getting different information that is hopefully more and more beneficial on how to thrive as a volunteer in the human experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So, what kind of upgrades did they do between the first wave of volunteers and the second wave? Because I've been told that um, the first wave was kind of like the it was kind of like the free for all, or like they kind of just like it was kind of like, oh, do the best you can, and like you know what I mean? So I guess like what kind of things did they change between the first wave of volunteers that came in and the second wave?
Yeah. So it was like we didn't know what we were getting into, right? So with
Yeah,
the first wave of
exactly.
volunteer, we didn't know what we didn't know. So we didn't know what to prepare for because we hadn't been active. So the type of upgrades, a lot more sleepers in the second wave. We just used a lot of them just to transmit information. So they weren't necessarily awake in a lot of ways that the first ones were, where everything was like overstimulated, overpowering. But we are showing that with the first wave, they were more like we're showing her like they were more open to unconditional love, like they were more open that way, like their hearts were more open, so it was more painful. That's what we're showing with the first waves, like that was very, very painful and like, oh my gosh. Second waves, they had more of like third eye activations, like they could understand and see energy a lot better, but they were more shut down with their heart. Like they had a lot more trauma experiences in the second wave. And the third waves were meant to be the way showers of that trauma, of how to transmute the trauma. And as each, like the next waves, the fourth, fifth, sixth waves, like there's less trauma in their lives. And they're more about living in a free, in like a like love, all loving way.
So the first wave, is this where the hippie movement came about?
That's what it
Or,
felt like to Carrie. Like when they were explaining the love that like the first waves had unconditional love, like they're showing me the free love like movement.
yeah, I just saw a bunch of people with like their like the peace signs and everything.
Right, right. And the second wave seemed more shut down from that.
So was Dolores Cannon an aspect of Nostradamus?
No.
Okay, perfect. So what else can you tell us about like why, I guess not even quantum healing, but just like natural healing and energy healing? Why is this all so important at this time?
Because once you realize that it's that like all those things you're told about God loves you, like you're infinitely loved, unconditionally loved. Why would that be true and you wouldn't be able to utilize everything to be able to heal yourself? Like we're trying to like the show that you are so loved that the world has the capabilities for healing and for all that to be accessed, that you don't have to, at this time when the world is so kind of turned on its side by the what's important, that like you don't necessarily need money to receive the gifts of the universe. And so we're showing that the practitioners are trained in whatever it may be, or they're naturally aligned with a healing modality that they are is encoded with them, but that you're all capable of these things, and you are unconditionally loved. And we want that free love, that free energy along that same like topic, like you to realize how loved you are and how it's there for you, and that you aren't subservient to a machine or a government or a hospital system or a monetary system, that there is so much more that is that access to you, and a gift for you that is naturally symbiotic with your soul.
Dolores Cannon also spoke about backdrop people or non-player characters. Can you explain what this means?
So the non-player characters, like we're showing, like they aren't there to consciously have a experience at that time. They're there to create a density and to create a holographic experience, but they're not necessarily using their free will to have a conscious, like a conscious experience on Earth.
So, what kind of role do these people play in our lives?
They're just there to make you feel comfortable.
So, about how many people do you feel are backdrop people in our reality?
Like they're showing Carrie like more than that are actually in the reality.
So,
But
do we?
it's not all the time. So like if you're in a small intimate group setting or whatever, the backdrop people aren't there. The backdrop people are there for those big experiences to let you feel like you're having an experience.
So, is it the illusion that there is a lot more happening in this reality than we think?
Yes.
So, do we create this illusion? So, I guess my question is like, So do these people like do they hold a vibration, or are they just completely made up in our mind? Like, are they just complete mental projections?
Like we're here like showing Carrie a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. That it's an intermixing depending on the situation.
And so how does this relate to how we're creators in our life? So I guess kind of like the what I'm imagining is you know how when you're vibrating at a frequency and you start to manifest, let's say you go, okay, to use this example, so I'm on the subway and people start fighting on the subway. So if those are non-player characters like holding a vibration, how did I attract those that level of the non-player character to me? So am I able to like attract like a higher vibrational non-player character to me? Does that question make sense?
Yes. So you're saying, does the level of the frequency which you're vibrating and the experience that you're having, that you're aligning with at that time, does that depict on what the outside of like non-player characters, what they're doing? Like if I'm at a higher vibration, am I going to never see that fight occur? Is that what you're
Exactly.
asking?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, yeah, potentially, but like, did that fight occur to like point out something to you so that you could like make a free will choice and have an opportunity to make a free will choice to try to intervene and to try to speak unconditional love? Like there's so many things that could play. Like I get what you're saying, but that fight necessarily isn't a low vibration thing. That fight could be something that catapults and triggers a high vibration reaction. And so you're just seeing it manifest as a fight. So it's not necessarily that it's of a lower frequency. And so you will depict the things that need to create a chain reaction for for an opportunity for you to have a higher perspective.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, why is it even for someone just starting their spiritual journey? Why is it even important to understand backdrop people? And I know that this can kind of be like a hard, like something kind of hard to grasp when you're first going through your spiritual awakening. But why is it important to know about?
Well, it's always important, yes, and this is a big concept. So we're dropping it as a in our terms, and we understand like, but this is a big ticket concept as far as like the matrix. But it's important to understand that when you walk around and you feel like judgment, you feel that feeling of judgment, and you feel like there are so many people in this world that can give you judgment, even when you walk in public. When you have a higher perspective, like you don't even know who is like consciously having an experience along your timeline with you and who's just a backdrop person. Like you really don't. So it makes it easier to release all concerns with other people judging, because you could be concerned that this group of people is judging you, and those group of people aren't even having a conscious experience. They're backdrop people. So what do you care that it's a backdrop person's judging you? And so to go out and to live your most authentic life in alignment with who you are, with the gifts and the skills that you provided to you, and those people that you have the more intimate reactions with, those are your opportunities to experience this human experience with, and to don't worry about the judgment that you have from people. You don't even know if they exist, but just focus on the here and now and the moments that you're there to experience.
So, how do you define the matrix? What is the matrix that we're all in?
uh do you want this as one individual podcast on its own? Because we could go deep. We're surface level, the constructs of beliefs that make up the reality that you're experiencing.
So what does that have to do with NPCs? Why are there so many NPCs? Why are there even NPCs?
They're simply there to give density to create an experience. If you went to a crowd, like there's not as many souls experiencing this earth experience as you know had originally thought. But if you go to a concert and there's only 10 people there, what kind of experience is that going to feel like? Like we put the backdrop people in there to make it a more comfortable experience to go experience these big things together.
Is there anything else that you want to tell us about Dolores Cannon's work, why it's so important, or quantum healing?
It's so important at this time because of the shift that the humanity's making and that the density is the ascension. And we will not go too into that. We think that would be a great, the next topics is to go more into that detail. But right now it's for all the volunteers that are there right now to awaken to their bigger mission that they're there for. Not that we don't want them to have an human experience. We just need them to, the ones that are contracted to wake up at this time, to hold the vibration and the frequency, to help create an interwebbing between humanity so that when the ascension happens, that in essence, you can catch as many fish as possible.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. So I do have a couple more questions. Do you want to answer those or should we wait till next week?
Yes, let's hear the topic and we'll let you know.
So it was just more about like what is a timeline? What is a quantum leap? What are the dimensions or what is a dimension?
So we'll answer the timeline one and we'll leave the dimensions and quantum leap for next week to understand the matrix and the Earth's ascension, because we find that those will very nicely flow together. And so timelines are every decision, that free will decision that you are experiencing. So we're going to use Carrie, for example. Carrie's walking down the road. She has a free will decision to make a choice. She go left or right. Well, she thought about both left and right. So now immediately both timelines branch out where left and right and the outcomes of both decisions now are created. She may consciously still go right, but in that free will thought form, that vibration now created a timeline to the left. So now any decision that's made on that timeline to the left, even though she's consciously deciding and on the right hand timeline, that left hand timeline now has branches and sub branches and branches and quantum, like the infinite decisions made on those. So it's like this big interwebbing, if you can see, of like different choices that hold different vibrations and different experiences. And some of the timelines all end up to the same place, but it can get kind of messy, and the ripple effects of certain timelines. And we do have like Ceirra, you do work on the timelines as far as helping those some of those so that they don't create too much of a vibration into the other timelines and bleed into them. And so in a sense, timelines and dimensions can be interchanged because you can jump from one timeline to another at any given point.
So what's the difference between an individual timeline and when we talk about collective timelines?
It's kind of like if you had a graph, you have like the thick line, and then you may have smaller little lines that kind of dip down, dip up, dip down, but they kind of go along with the trajectory of the main graph line, right? So that main graph line would be all of humanity. It's free will collective, the free will and the collective, like where they're at, and the other small little lines that may veer off a little bit, and those would be the individual timelines within that bigger timeline.
So all of these different timelines, are these the timelines that create parallel realities?
Yes.
So I know you talked about quantum jumping. When we quantum jump, does that take us into a different parallel reality?
It can essentially, yes. But you are changing your reality like all the time.
So what is more powerful, an individual timeline or a collective timeline?
Well, I think that would be perspective of powerful. Obviously an individual's timeline can greatly impact the collective timeline. So an individual does have power to greatly impact the collective timeline. So if you look at it that way, they're all essentially powerful, but like like we're really showing, like they're showing me the words I am. Like they're showing me how powerful the I am is to really change the trajectory of the collective timeline. That's why they're saying light workers and the mission is so important, because it doesn't take many of the light workers to empower their I am and to raise their frequency to change the whole trajectory and the whole like timeline of the collective.
What is the I am and why is it important?
I am is summoning God, your God spirit, your God source, your God, your power. So I am is you acknowledging your God. So you're commanding. Anything you say after I am is you commanding, like God would command. God wouldn't ask, God would command it.
So why are affirmations so important?
You're summoning your God power. You're acknowledging it. You're stepping into your power. It's a way for you to visualize it, to feel it as well, to see it happen right before your eyes.
What are examples of some of the most liberating affirmations that people could say to themselves daily?
I am unconditional love. I am sovereign. I am a higher dimensional being having a human experience. I am abundant. I am grateful.
Beautiful. Do you have any final messages for the collective today?
We're just showing, like we showed Carrie just right now, like a big phoenix, a big hawk. We're showing her there's transformation and liberation happening, but there's also going to be big changes happening. As far as we need our light workers and we need our light warriors and we need the ones that were contracted to really step into their power during this time to heal the inner traumas that they've experienced, to realize that they're more than that, to be in the present now. We need them to release that density so it can stay back behind. And so we're really asking anyone that has inner work to do to step up now and to take this opportunity to do the inner work, that we know that you're powerful and can do it and will be surviving and thriving after just acknowledging the inner work that you need to do. And it's time, light workers, for us to all do the work.
So why is now so important?
We need to have them release that lower density so they can ascend to a higher, allow more of their higher selves in at this time. So when you release that space where that density once resided, the higher selves now have space to exist within those bodies. And we need humanity to be helped during this time by our light workers, by our volunteers. And so we need them to be the strongest and the most empowered that they can at this time.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for all the information you gave us today.
You're welcome.